Part 1. The Silent Blade and the Mask of Motive. Everyone sees what you appear to be. Few experience what you really are. Machiavelli aimed that line at princes, but in 2025, it targets you. In a culture that rewards speed, noise, and instant takes, the rare advantage is not a louder voice, it's a colder mind. Before we dive in, subscribe to Ruthless Psychology and join a community that studies the hidden rules of power, control, and influence. This channel is for those who dare to see the world as it truly is, not as we wish it to be. Hooked? Good. Because the first move of a dangerous mind is not attack. It is absence. It is choosing to say nothing when everyone else is scrambling to sound smart. Picture a meeting. A confident manager dominates airtime. A rival sprinkles buzzwords like confetti. The room swells with certainty. You sit still. You watch. You count who interrupts whom, who glances at the boss before speaking, whose story shifts when questioned. The noise is data. Silence becomes a net. This is not shyness, it is strategy. Speech is exposure. Every sentence you utter gives away priorities, frames, and tells. Silence, by contrast, creates projection. People map intelligence onto the unreadable. They explain themselves to you to relieve their own anxiety. They reveal leaks without realizing a leak occurred. Machiavelli's lesson: restraint sharpens power. The less you reveal, the harder you are to attack, and the easier it is to choose the exact moment to strike. Mini hook: what happens if you refuse the bait? A coworker needles you publicly, poking for a reaction. Most people defend. You inhale, tilt your head, let the question hang a beat too long. You ask one surgical question: what problem are we solving exactly? The crowd's attention pivots from you to the flaw in their premise. No drama, no argument, just leverage. In the game of impressions, the calmest person becomes the judge. Modern life rewards those who can endure the discomfort of unfilled space. If you can, you win invisible battles. You collect unguarded information. You make others chase your approval. You slow the tempo until timing favors you. Strategic silence trains two muscles: delayed gratification and attentional control. Delay lets you choose consequence over catharsis. Attention lets you notice what frantic people miss. But silence is only half of part 1. The second edge is motive detection. Reading what people want beneath what they say. Most social pain comes from taking words at face value. Most social power comes from watching patterns. Machiavelli warned that appearances are crafted. Masks are policies. So you study micro-hesitations, the way a smile fades half a second too early, how a favor arrives attached to a future invoice. You collect discrepancies. Declared values versus calendar realities. Generous language versus selfish scheduling. Apologies versus repairs. Story: a friend just checking in calls after months of distance. They rave about your new project, ask curious questions, then drift toward, by the way, do you know anyone at old you would be flattered? The Machiavellian you runs a quiet audit. Did they show up when you had no leverage? Do they mirror your language unusually fast? Are they rushing intimacy? You don't accuse, you pace. You answer one question less than they asked. You note whether their warmth survives a boundary. Patterns reveal intent long before confessions do. In business, motive reading separates rainmakers from roadkill. A client says, budget is tight, yet upgrades their office furniture. Translation: money exists, urgency does not. A recruiter promises rapid growth while ghosting between emails. Translation: chaos upstairs. You respond accordingly. Minimal commitments, reversible moves, options preserved. You do not punish reality, you price it. Here's a ruthless truth: manipulators do not hate strong opponents. They hate clear mirrors. When you see motives, their best weapons: flattery, guilt, manufactured urgency, Misfire. Your neutrality starves the script. Nothing panics a schemer like a target who will not emote on cue. Engagement moment. Have you ever sensed a hidden motive and ignored it because the story felt nicer? What did it cost you? Drop it in the comments. Do you think Machiavelli was right or too ruthless? Leave your thoughts below. Practical drills. 1. The 3-beat pause. Before you answer any loaded question, breathe, repeat the question neutrally, and ask for one clarifier. 2. Evidence over anecdotes. Track what people do 3 times. Don't crown them for what they did once. 3. The mirror test. After any persuasive pitch, ask yourself, if I believe the opposite, what evidence would I notice? This kills seduction by symmetry, when the story fits too perfectly to be true. Add a 4th drill, the power question. When pressured for a fast answer, ask, who benefits if I answer now? If the timeline serves them and not the decision, slow the game. In relationships, motive reading protects your heart without hardening it. Boundaries are not walls, they are gates with guards. You can be warm and still keep records. You can forgive and still adjust permissions. You can love someone's potential and still trust their pattern. Final hook for part 1. Imagine spending the next week speaking 30% less and logging every mismatch between speech and behavior you observe. What would shift? Your calendar, your alliances, your resilience. Power quietly begins when attention deepens and tempo slows. The prince who governs himself governs outcomes. Part 2. Curiosity as a weapon, stillness as an edge. Machiavelli distrusted pretty stories. He prized mechanisms, how a thing really works beneath the polite surface. That is why the 3rd sign of a strategically intelligent mind is not casual curiosity, but operational curiosity. Average curiosity asks, what is this? Operational curiosity asks, who designed this? Who profits? And how can I redesign it to serve me? One approach observes, the other reverse engineers. Modern example, a platform explodes in popularity. Most people binge the content. You study the plumbing. You chart incentive loops, see how the algorithm rewards frequency over depth, measure the lag between trend ignition and mainstream imitation. You are learning the levers, not the lore. Later, when a colleague wonders why your smaller effort outperforms, you smile and say, I shipped for the system, not for my ego. The difference is invisible to the crowd, but obvious to power. Operational curiosity keeps you fluid while others fossilize. People freeze their worldview at 25, then defend it with increasing desperation. You remain uncomfortable on purpose. You rotate disciplines, steal models from biology for business, pull negotiation principles from theater, borrow military doctrine to run teams. Curiosity turns into a latticework, a mental scaffolding you can climb when chaos arrives. Leaders who survive aren't those with one hammer. They are those with an armory. How to train it? Do postmortems on wins, not just losses. Reverse engineer your successes until you can repeat them. Build small sandboxes where you test tactics with low cost and fast feedback. Keep a systems notebook where you diagram incentives, flows, and failure points for anything you rely on. Meetings, hiring pipelines, marketing funnels, even friendships. The goal is to touch the gears. Mini hook. Consider the last 3 situations that surprised you. Could you have predicted any with better sensors? What signal did you ignore because it felt inconvenient to your current story? Power belongs to the builder of detectors. Now the 4th sign, you rarely feel bored because your mind entertains itself. This is not a cute quirk. It is sovereign attention, the kind rulers cultivate when court goes quiet and the real decisions begin. Boredom is what a mind feels when it cannot direct itself. If you can sit alone with your thoughts and generate designs, scenarios, and drills, you have independence in a world addicted to stimulation. Stillness is not idleness, it is rehearsal. In silence, you run mental war games. If that supplier fails, what's my backup? If my manager resigns, whom do I backfill, and what politics shift? If a rival copies my move, how do I raise switching costs? Most people invent disasters after they happen. You pre-live them and convert panic into protocol. The result is calm that feels like confidence to others and like inevitability to you. Story: a founder rides the subway with no headphones, sketching architectures in a notebook. She maps the purchase journey, lists breakpoints, circles the two places where delight compounds. Later, when the board asks why churn fell without an expensive campaign, she shrugs. We fixed the seams. This is the quiet advantage of minds that play long games while everyone else is busy refreshing. Training stillness, schedule white space, and defend it like revenue. Choose 1 hour where you do not consume, you only produce. Walk without your phone and narrate what you notice as if you were briefing a prince. Build mental libraries, lists of stories, frameworks, historical precedents, one-liners that reset a room. When the moment comes, your silence will not be empty, it will be armed. Curiosity and stillness reinforce each other. Curiosity feeds you raw material. Stillness smelts it into tools. Together, they produce a personality that appears relaxed and is, in fact, relentlessly prepared. Machiavelli would nod. The man who understands causes does not panic at effects. Engagement moment. Try the White Room drill this week. Sit in an empty room for 20 minutes with a single question at the top of a page. What is the real game here? See how many mechanics you can uncover before you run out of ink. Then, drop your favorite discovery in the comments so others can steal it. That is how a community of clear minds compounds. Practical applications before we close. Part 2. In careers, curiosity makes you role agnostic and value specific so you can pivot without begging. In money, stillness protects you from panic selling and FOMO buying, while curiosity helps you model risk as a portfolio, not a roulette spin. In relationships, boredom becomes a cue to create together. Build a ritual, design a challenge, rather than reaching for cheap novelty. In leadership, white space becomes the team's moat. You become the person who thinks when others can only react. Your team learns that speed without orientation is merely a prettier form of waste. And in reputation, the ability to be alone with your thoughts inoculates you against the most common modern humiliation, saying something you didn't mean because silence felt unbearable. One last drill: borrow the strategist's refrain. Compared to what? Every decision is relative. When a proposal lands on your desk, ask, compared to which alternative, at what cost, over what horizon? Curiosity frames the options. Stillness prevents the stampede. Part 2 closes with an old promise. If you will study causes and practice quiet, the world will call your foresight luck. Accept the compliment and keep building detectors. The less you need noise, the more loudly your results will speak. In conflict, stillness lets you absorb insults without donation of status. Curiosity analyzes the attacker's supply lines, so counterpunches land where it counts. Part 3. The discipline of not proving, the subtlety of planting. There is a point in every ambitious life where the need to be seen collides with the desire to be effective. Most people choose visibility. Machiavellian minds choose outcomes. That is the fifth sign. You feel no need to prove you're smart. You don't correct people to score points. You don't lecture to advertise literacy. You don't enter debates where winning the room loses the war. You know that the louder you argue, the more you donate leverage. Story: A product review turns tense. A colleague dismisses your approach with a confident, shallow critique. The room tilts toward them because certainty dazzles. The average response is defense, slides, citations, heat. Your response is colder. You ask for one testable criterion. If this is true, what number changes by Friday? You move the conflict from ego to reality. Then you shut up and let measurement arbitrate. By Monday, the metric says what you never had to. You didn't win the argument, you won the calendar. This restraint is not passivity, it is economy. Every display of cleverness costs attention you could invest elsewhere. The urge to be validated is a lever your enemies can pull. Provoke you, bait you, and keep you busy proving while they are busy moving. Machiavelli prized appearances, but he prized optionality more. A mind that is sure of its edge does not spend it on applause. It spends it on position. Mini hook. What would happen if, for the next month, you treated being understood as optional and being effective as mandatory? How many arguments would die ungiven? How much energy would return to tactics that compound? Tactic. Weaponized humility. You let others speak first, praise their good points, and file their blind spots. You accept smaller credit today to own larger leverage tomorrow. You lower your displayed ceiling so rivals stop aiming. Caesar used it, so do quiet CEOs who look like they got lucky because they never asked to look brilliant. Appear less capable than you are isn't about feigning incompetence. It's about hiding sharp edges until someone leans on them. Practical drills. First, the outcomes-only filter. Before you speak, ask, will this increase my probability of getting X? If not, silence. Second, the reversibility rule. Argue less, experiment more. If a decision is reversible, let your critic have it and collect the data. If it's irreversible, escalate privately, not performatively. Third, the credit arbitrage. Give public credit, negotiate private control. People work for praise. Systems obey the hand that writes procedures. Emotional cost alert. Not proving will trigger the oldest hunger, the desire to be seen as right. You will watch someone less competent bask in attention while you sit on the move that changes everything. That ache is the toll. Pay it. Power often requires you to be underrated in public and overarmed in private. Now, the sixth sign. You can make people believe it was their idea. This is not sweet talk. It is architecture. You do not push minds. You arrange incentives and questions until the path of least resistance leads to your conclusion. People hate being convinced. They love being right. Your job is to let them arrive at your destination wearing their own crown. Scene. A team resists a security. Policy you know is essential. If you lecture, they defend their autonomy. If you mandate, they drag their heels. Instead, you seed cases of near misses from peers. Ask, if a breach happened here, where would it start? And wait. A week later, the most vocal resistor proposes surprise, a stricter policy framed as protecting their reputation. You accept enthusiastically. Credit goes to them. Compliance goes to you. That is persuasion without fingerprints. How to plant ideas. 1. Questions over claims. What would make this fail? If we were wrong, how would we know? Questions bypass status defenses and force the brain into co-authorship. 2. Frame to identity. People do not adopt beliefs. They adopt self-images. You translate your proposal into their language. This protects your speed. This proves your craftsmanship. This makes your team look elite. 3. Pre-ownership. Offer a half solution and invite edit rights. People defend what they have touched. 4. Sequencing. Don't argue the conclusion. Stack premises everyone accepts until your outcome is the only coherent next step. It feels like gravity. Ethical note: Machiavellian does not mean malicious. It means realistic about how humans change. Facts rarely move people. Feelings of authorship do. If the end is mutually beneficial, the gentle illusion of origin is a kindness. If the end serves only you, understand that your short-term victory accumulates reputational debt. Even princes go bankrupt when too many remember how the trick felt. Mini hook: think of a time you forced a good idea and met resistance. Could the same content seeded as questions over 2 weeks have landed clean? What would you ask on day 1? Day 4? Day 9? Common mistakes when planting. 1. Rushing the reveal. You push for the aha before the groundwork is there. People feel handled. 2. Stealing credit at the end. You correct the record and convert goodwill into permanent opposition. Let it go. The board, the boss, the market, whoever matters, will notice the pattern over time. 3. Manipulating identities you don't respect. If you secretly despise someone you're guiding, your cues leak contempt. They will smell it. Influence requires genuine empathy for their point of view, even while you redirect it. Applications beyond work. In relationships, planting ideas looks like co-designing habits instead of nagging. What would make evenings calmer for both of us? Beats: you never put your phone down. In negotiation, it looks like asking the other side to sketch their win, then bridging that sketch to terms that protect your floor. In leadership, it looks like building a culture where the best proposals come from the edges, which you quietly curated by asking the right questions in the right corridors. Keep one caution close. The more you succeed at suggestion, the more you must root your compass. It is easy to confuse the thrill of orchestration with the justice of outcomes. Machiavelli respected force, but he also respected statecraft, stability, continuity, legitimacy. Planting should serve systems that work, not just egos that want. Part 3 closes with a challenge. For 7 days, track every instance where you reflexively tried to prove yourself. Replace each with a question that moves the decision forward. At the same time, choose one initiative you believe in and design a 3-step seeding plan that culminates in someone else carrying it across the line. Report your experiments below. Our community learns fastest when we compare scars. You do not need to be the sun to grow a garden. Be the season. Quietly change the conditions and watch ideas sprout in other people's names. Part 4. Calculation over reaction. The long game of conflict power is expensive when you buy it with emotion. You pay immediately in reputation, options, and attention. That is why the 7th sign of strategic intelligence is the coldest. You do not react, you calculate. The world prods you for a performance. You give it a ledger. You separate stimulus from response, delay from days to minutes to a single breath, and in that gap, you reclaim authorship. People mistake quiet for weakness. They are wrong. Quiet is aim. Picture a public ambush. A colleague forgets context and frames you as the blocker. The room looks at you for the explosion. You give them a clock instead. Let's document the timeline so we don't miss anything. You move the fight from theater to records. In 10 minutes, the narrative shifts from who felt what to who did what, when, and what must happen next. No insults, no victory lap, just the calm imposition of reality. Your lack of heat lowers everyone's temperature and raises your authority. Non-reactivity is not numbness. It is containment. You feel anger. You don't publish it. You feel shame. You don't negotiate from it. Machiavellian minds treat emotions as weather, acknowledged, forecasted, never allowed to pilot the plane. The goal is not to be unfeeling. It is to direct feeling like a river into a turbine. Mini hook. What if the next time someone made you look small, you treated that moment as a data spike, not a destiny? You jot the who, the where, the incentive, the witnesses, and the likely endgame. You don't swing, you build a file. One day of patience converts a bad day into leverage. 3 principles govern calculation. 1. Distance before decision. You create space. A pause in conversation, a night before reply, a week before restructure, so that your options multiply. 2. Outcome over optics. You choose the move that changes power, not the move that earns applause. 3. Pressure by process. You force repeat offenders into systems they cannot wriggle through, written approvals, shared dashboards, rotating reviewers. When people realize they cannot manipulate you, they try to manipulate the environment. You preempt by hardening it. Story. A manager undermines you with compliments that contain poison. You're so brilliant at analysis, we'll keep you on research while others present. Translation. Stay back. Old you would argue for stage time and look needy. Calculating, you proposes a small pilot where you present directly to a subset of stakeholders with a metric tied to clarity or conversion. You win the metric. You expand the mandate. You never begged for a microphone. Results handed you one. Another story. In a relationship, a partner hits your buttons and then accuses you of being too intense. You stop negotiating under adrenaline. You say, "I'll talk when I can respect my own words," and you leave the room. Later, you return with the standard you want. When we disagree, no sarcasm, no volume, one topic at a time, and a 10-minute timeout if either asks. That is calculation. You replace the arena, not just the angle of attack. Drills to convert reaction into rule. The interval before any consequential reply, email, text, meeting answer, insert one beat where you write the response you want to send, delete it, and write the response that advances position. The scale. Rate your anger from 1 to 10. Do not act above a 4. Above that, you're broadcasting, not bargaining. The ledger. After any conflict, record the precipitating event, your initial impulse, the move you chose, and the outcome. Patterns of provocation emerge. So do your best countermoves. Strategy is just memory with discipline. Public provocation requires an extra layer, reputation judo. When someone takes a swing in front of witnesses, you do not throw a counterpunch. You throw a spotlight. Ask clarifying questions so specific that vague accusations collapse. Can you point to the requirement doc and the date? Which risk did we not address? People who rely on heat cannot survive under high resolution. The crowd learns without you scolding them. Timing matters as much as technique. You never retaliate at peak emotion, you retaliate at peak effect. That might be a budget cycle, a performance review, a contract renewal, an election, or the day after their protector leaves. You don't nurse grudges, you schedule outcomes. It is not cruelty, it is choreography. Mercy is powerful when people believe you own the alternative. Mini hook. What feud are you fighting at the wrong time? If you waited 2 weeks, what leverage would ripen that is absent today? Delay is not surrender, it is interest. Protect your future self from your current storms with pre-commitments. Write policies when you are calm that govern you when you are not. I do not reply to inflammatory emails same day. I do not accept meeting invitations without an agenda. I do not negotiate in DMs. We move to a thread. These rules look rigid. They are actually compassionate. They save you from the tax of preventable fires. Advanced move, counterintelligence. If someone loves to yank you around with urgent emergencies, thank them and route everything through a standardized intake with a triage SLA. The first time they protest, you smile. This makes sure we never miss your critical needs. You didn't argue about their chaos. You dissolved it in a process that reveals their pattern to everyone. Lies hate logs. Calculation also means choosing your theater. You escalate privately when correction is the point. You escalate publicly when protection is the point. You praise in public even when you're maneuvering in private. You never humiliate unless you intend to end the relationship. Humiliation breeds zealots, not lessons. Princes understood this. So do modern executives who fire for cause with documentation and dignity. Engagement moment. Describe a time in the comments when waiting turned a losing position into a win. What did patience buy that anger would have burned? Keep one paradox close. You cannot be both unpredictable and sloppy. If your discipline is inconsistent, your unpredictability looks like volatility, and people will hedge against you. But when your discipline is consistent, your unpredictability looks like range, and people will respect your space. The difference is whether you can explain your move to yourself without excuses. Finally, the spiritual side of calculation, choosing which battles to ignore forever. Not every insult merits a reply. Not every slight threatens your throne. The truly dangerous mind is selective. You protect your mission, not your mood. You accept being misunderstood as the tax of momentum. You know that every reaction grows the thing you hate. So you starve it. You feed the structure that makes it irrelevant. Part 4 closes with a challenge. Pick one arena: work, money, love, health, and write your non-reactivity doctrine, your pauses, your thresholds, your escalation paths, your logs. Share a line or two below to strengthen the community's playbook. When 1,000 clear minds choose calculation over spectacle, the culture shifts. We stop performing power and start owning it. Part 5. Converting insight into command. You have the 7 signs. Now the final turn. Convert clarity into command. Intelligence that stays in your head is decoration. Intelligence that moves the world is discipline applied on a schedule. First, accept the tax of rarity. You will be doubted, copied late, praised selectively, and blamed early. Wear it without complaint. When the crowd takes a shortcut, you take a standard. When they ask for your sources, point to your outcomes. When they bait you for spectacle, give them silence and a deadline. Second, build a network, not a following. Crowds applaud, allies compound. Keep your inner circle small, skilled, and mutually accountable. Trade candor for candor. Reward discretion. Fire gossip. Invite people who sharpen your plans, not just your mood. Third, turn principles into rituals. Weekly, 1 hour of white space, 1 page of systems notes, 1 question-led conversation, 1 reversible experiment, 1 conflict closed by process. Monthly, choose a vice to starve and a virtue to feed. Quarterly, a strategic retreat where you interrogate your story, your incentives, and your blind spots. Fourth, choose a realm to rule, career, craft, company, or cause, and measure power by optionality. More doors open, more exits available, more people protected. You are responsible for the surface area of good decisions you create. Final charge. The world tries to keep clear minds busy, loud, and ultimately harmless. Refuse. Govern your tempo. Govern your attention. Govern your fights. Then govern the outcomes. Before you go, subscribe to Ruthless Psychology and join the few who train in public but maneuver in silence. Share the one ritual you'll implement this week. Do you think Machiavelli was right or too ruthless? Say why below. This channel is for those who dare to see the world as it is and to win within it. Remember his warning and his gift. It is not titles that honor men, but men that honor titles. Wear none until the results fit, then wear them lightly.